Pokemon Scarlet and Violet were both massive commercial successes. Even with all of their technical messes, we're talking rough textures, constant pop-ins, and a lifeless open world. It was a big letdown for a multi-billion-dollar franchise, but with Generation 10 rumoured for 2026, Game Freak has the chance at redemption. We've been seeing reports of them hiring new talent and possibly adopting a new engine internally called Pokemon Engine X. This could be the real game changer. It is expected to be released on the Switch 2 console. Other developers like Monolith Software have showed us that even with the Switch 1's hardware, it is capable of creating massive open world games like the Xenoblade Chronicles 3, which has a seamless open world. This is something that Game Freak has really struggled with in the Switch 1 generation, and with the Switch 2 promising even more power, allowing for better, more optimization. Today, I would like to lay down my ultimate wish list for Generation 10, from performance fixes to epic post-game content. This is what I want. I'm Freaksy, and welcome to the video. I hope you enjoy. So, to start off my list, guys, my top priority for Generation 10 is simple. Deliver a game that runs well and looks amazing. There are many factors that benefit this and hopefully mean that we're going to get an amazing game hopefully next year in 2026. The first factor being the Switch 2. We now know, with the Switch 2 being released for a few months now, that it's a very powerful piece of kit which can allow for games to be optimized very well. And hopefully, looking at how smooth and how well Scarlet and Violet and Legends ZA ran, despite them kind of not being perfectly optimized and they're still using old engines, I think that, it really shows the potential for Switch 2 games in the future, definitely, considering around Pokemon. I definitely think that as well, obviously with this new rumoured engine that they've had and they've built from the ground up, I think this is going to be significant. As you know, we've seen with multiple other games, Hyrule Warriors, for example, that you can have these vast open world games on Switch and Switch 2 and they do run really well. So I'm really hoping that this again similarly can happen with a new engine. And with this new engine and more powerful Switch, I'm really hoping that this can allow us to have a living, breathing open world. So, for example, with Scarlet and Violet and Legends ZA, Pokemon are in the open world, but unfortunately, they don't interact with it very well. Maybe a Pokemon will be sitting on a tree or something like that, but other than that, Pokemon should interact with each other, and there should be like the dynamics of bigger predator Pokemon and Pokemon that travel in groups, and these sort of things should all be available and all make sense and should be feel like you're in a real living, breathing Pokemon ecosystem. Secondly, as well, I'd really like to see a mix of procedural generation versus crafted routes. The rumoured island style that this game and the rumoured name Wind and Wave is supposed to have means that we're going to be doing a lot of island hopping, which could create a lot of opportunities for No Man's Sky type generation, where we could see, random islands with, really cool environments. I really hope that we kind of, all these different islands, if we do get it in this sort of way, kind of have very specific themes and it's very obvious and, a very dynamic, very large array of environments and islands, even if they're close together, because I want to see kind of the full potential of different environments on the Switch. As well as this, I really hope that there is also an element of crafted routes as well, similar to old games, and especially like ones we had in Sword and Shield. I thought this is something that game did really well, was it had these incredible looking sort of mini routes as well as the open world area. I thought, with the Switch 2's power as well, I definitely think it's going to be a really great opportunity to be able to have a little bit of both, where you can have these epic close action cutscenes in these crafted routes that you can have lots of action and dynamic things happening, but also have the opportunity to have these new explorable open vast worlds where Pokemon and humans and people can interact and enjoy and feel like they're really living within the Pokemon universe. So moving on to my second and just as important point, obviously I've discussed the technical power of the game and how the game must look incredible, but as well as looking incredible and performing very well, we also need a immersive story and voice acting. These are two things that are very big and things that I think the Pokemon Company currently lack. Definitely with the voice acting elements to start with, I think, for example, we've had, especially in Legends ZA, all of these big cutscenes that they're starting to try and get involved in Pokemon games, and I can see them doing more again in the future. And, without voice actors, I mentioned this in my Legends ZA video, the world just feels very empty and very quiet, and for, a big boisterous city, for these sort of environments, if there's no voices, no nothing, it just sounds very empty and very static, for example. And also with the voice acting, it's just very strange to not have anyone, just clicking A while somebody's doing all of these big hand movements and all of this, but there's no actual like, it feels like emotion in it, and I feel like it would really add something to the story and make you feel more connected to the characters if you have this, sort of, you can hear their emotion, and you kind of have to think about how Pokemon characters are feeling about situations you don't know by their tone of voice or how they're looking. So I think it's something that a lot of people have already mentioned, especially even though going all the way back to Sword and Shield. But it's something that at this point, the game and the technical power they have, they should really be able to do. And I think alongside this as well, we really want these epic cutscenes to really immerse us in the story. I want a story that's kind of, I really enjoyed the Scarlet and Violet story, and I think that it had a lot of positive points. But at the same time, I think, especially with the evil team, I felt it was a little bit goofy in my opinion. And I think that this time around, we really need a real more serious, big, like, bad team for Generation 10, something similar to the team in Black and White. I think that, or Team Galactic in Diamond and Pearl. I think, these teams with really big role, like world changing goals, rather than what we just had in Scarlet and Violet. It felt a bit like gimmicky and boring. So I really hope that they can bring something more intense, something like more they have in the Legends games, for example. So moving on more towards the gameplay side of Generation 10 and what I want to see. First, I wanted to talk about the gimmick I thought that they were going to use for the battle system. I think it's, they've used many different gimmicks, especially in the Switch era with terrestrialization and Gigantamaxing. And I definitely think that with this generation, I think it would be cool to look at a style of gimmick that wouldn't necessarily change the physical appearance of a Pokemon or kind of make it bigger or make it into a Mega Evolution. Maybe look at something that is a sort of over leveling, like for example, like a limit break, something like that, where a Pokemon, for example, you see Pokemons in the anime that kind of go and they produce these mad moments of power where maybe they've over leveled or they've overcharged themselves. You know what I see? And I think this is like would be a really cool sort of mechanic. I know that especially they're going to be experimenting with higher levels than level 100 in Pokemon Legends EA. That's DLC, so I think that definitely there's going to be some sort of rooms have some sort of over leveling mechanic or something like this, rather than kind of the terrestrialization or Mega Evolution things like that we've had in the past. Definitely. Let me know what you guys think about that and what you guys would like to see as a kind of a competitive Pokemon gimmick as well. Also, alongside that, I also like to think about the competitive hub. Obviously, is the competitive is a very big longevity part of Pokemon games that keep people coming back. Obviously, we know that Pokemon Champions is also due to release next year in 2026, so I'm going to assume a lot of the competitive VGC is going to be handled through that, which for me personally is a really positive thing, as it's going to allow the Pokemon games to kind of explore and see how to do competitive battling a little bit differently, as they're not going to have that pressure as the people who solely want to play VGC will have that Pokemon Champions, where hopefully they can, play all the different regulations and all the different formats they want. And I think definitely within Generation 10, I think it'd be really cool to switch up the format, offer different forms of battles. Obviously, still the same turn-based battling, but different fun mechanics, and just trying to switch things up and take a leaf out of the Legend games and maybe start to incorporate some of the things I've been building and practicing there into the main series games, now that we have a way to kind of preserve and protect how we play the original VGC game, which many people love to play. With a new generation, obviously comes new Pokemon, and with the Pokemon count for this new generation 10 game, I'm really not looking for a whole lot new Pokemon, but maybe 50 to 70 3-stage evolution Pokemon that are really high quality and have really good backstories and really good lores and really good uses. As you know, we have so many Pokemon at this point that we don't need any just boring 1-stage or 2-stage evolutions that are not really very good, like one competitively or two also just in general to use. They're a bit boring and it feels like they've just done it for a bit of a filler Pokemon to fill up the Pokedex a bit more. And with there being over 1,000 Pokemon now, we really don't need any more Pokemon like that. And I'm really hoping that there can be around 50 to 70 new high quality ones. And within that as well, I think there's a really good opportunity this generation to kind of add new 3rd-stage evolutions to lines that maybe could do with a 3rd stage that haven't had any love for a long time, which maybe can make these Pokemon more competitively viable, but still Pokemon that just don't look as cool or people aren't considered, they could give them a third new stage that will allow them to become one of the more powerful Pokemon, similar to what happened in Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, where they added all these third stages for all these Pokemon that really deserved it. I think it's a really, really great idea. And I think it's a shame that some of these Pokemon that are two-stage evolutions that they have added into Legends EA with new Mega Evolutions. I think it would have been just a lot cooler to give them a whole new third stage evolution rather than just this generic Mega form. But as I say, I can hope and pray that they're looking at bringing new third evolutions of some of these Pokemon that might not already have them. Alongside this, with the new region, I am going to assume it's going to be some sort of island hopping mechanic, some of the leaks we've had over the past year or so. And for these reasons, I really am going to need them to have that kind of the varied climates, and this is going to create a really big backstory. Especially, each different island should have its own legendary Pokemon that, or some of them should, where it's going to be like fire for Moltres or Heatran, or like an ice type place for Regice, things like this. And there needs to be really packed out environments. As for me, Scarlet and Violet and recent games haven't been, there's like snow on the ground or things like this, but the environments still don't feel really very immersive, and we really need more detail in them. So the final section I have for this video is about the end game experience. The main story is fine, but a end game is really something that defines a legendary Pokemon game. For example, Heart Gold and Soul Silver, where you can explore a whole brand new region. I'm not expecting this level of extra post game, as with the whole hopeful procedurally generated islands, that there's going to be lots of exploration and lots of opportunity to go and explore and fight on these new high level islands that you would not be able to see before normally. But one of the main things personally for me in the end game that Scarlet and Violet especially really lacked is some sort of battle frontier type thing. For example, in Black and White there was the battle subway. This is still to my day one of the favourite mechanics that I've had, and I really think that they lacked something like a battle frontier within Scarlet and Violet, somewhere that you can still practice VGC but in an offline environment where you're fighting trainers that are a little bit smarter than the normal AI, and also had a little bit more challenge for maybe older gamers who have gone through and kind of maybe found the base game a little bit too easy. Following on from this as well, I really do think it would be really great if they could release some sort of difficulty sliders, or maybe like a new game plus where you can play through the game again where all your Pokemon are the same level, but maybe Pokemon level based on your Pokemon's level, or some way to make it harder where they've got smarter AI or something, just to kind of, with the amount of older trainers that they will have now from people growing up playing these games, it would be really, really great for them to add some sort of difficulty features for trainers who maybe are a little bit older now but still love the games. So, with all those points made, guys, that is my comprehensive list of what I would really like to see in Pokemon Generations 10. If Game Freak can really utilise the new engine and the power of the Switch 2, they have potential to create one of the best Pokemon games ever. I really hope that they take all the features that the community are saying on board, and I really would like to hear from you guys in the comments below. What features do you think I missed that you would like to see in Generation 10? And is there anything that you disagreed, that you think that maybe you would like to see change for the future that I did not already mention within this video? I hope you very much enjoyed watching, and if you've got this far, it'd really be appreciated if you could like and maybe check out some of my other videos. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and I'll speak to you all very soon.